Hello! Hey, it's your girl Miranda here, and we're back with another limited set review for Secrets of Power this time. If you're new to the channel, hello, my name is Miranda. I am a long retired Magic the Gathering professional player, and I was a limited specialist, so I'd like to think that I'm good at limited. So this channel is mostly focused on limited, and it just kind of do whatever we feel like doing. We kind of just do this for fun. So I have been doing limited set reviews since Twilight, I think. Mostly just been writing them for my friends, but I think Secrets of Power is the first time I did a video for it. So this is our second like big limited set review. So I have a usual disclaimer. So just a quick note on sealed versus draft. I'm the school of thought that I'd rather have good cards and mediocre leader than the other way around. You don't have any control over what leaders you have access to in sealed, so sometimes you just play a leader because it has the aspects you want. Draft is different in that you already know what leaders you're going to have before you start drafting. This video is more geared for the pre-release, but I'll comment on draft viability wherever it's relevant. Also, I don't give ratings on cards. Card valuation is really highly dependent on your leader and the rest of your pool. Obviously, there are bombs that go into every deck, but you don't need to tell you that like, oh hey, this obvious bomb is obviously good. It's more knowing how to make the best use of the cards that you open and being able to be flexible in your valuation, because the valuation of cards can really fluctuate quite a lot depending on the other cards that you have. So let's get right into it. We'll start off with the leaders. So the first up is Chancellor Palpatine. So this is one of your two pre-release leaders that you are guaranteed to have in the pre-release, and you're not going to have access to it in draft or non-pre-release sealed events. So Palpatine, you better have some damn good plot cards to consider playing him. Without them, he doesn't do anything. So there will be some pools that can play him, but I suspect most won't be able to really take advantage of Palpatine. So not really something I'm like excited to play, but you know, every once in a while, it's like you just get a smattering of like really good plot cards, and you know, he's worth it. Next is Jabba the Hutt. It's Yabba! I'm sorry. Diego Luna obsessing over Yabba lives rent-free in my head. Editing Miranda is gonna have a really hard time not putting in a ton of Diego Luna clips in this video. Anyways, this is one of the better limited leaders in the set. There's actually quite a few cards that synergize with this ability. So you're going to want to include a lot of big butt units in your deck as well for this one. And by big butt, I mean like 4 or more health. Just because then the better version of his ability will become active. Next is Lama Su. So I'm normally very low on upgrades in general, but this set does have some decent ones. Still, it's just not enough to make this guy good. It's just too unreliable for my liking. Leia Organa. So Snoke was one of the best leaders in the previous set, and she's very similar. Her downside is that the more cards you have in your deck with more than one aspect, the less likely you'll be able to make use of her ability. And well, the best cards have more than one aspect. However, there are enough single aspect cards to make her work. Plus, you can always play like good out of aspect cards. So like, don't sleep on this leader. She's quite strong. Next is Satine Kryze. So the closest comp is Rose Tico from Jump to Lightspeed. The difference there is that she deployed as a 4/6 ground unit in a format dominated by space. Satine isn't unplayable, but not really where I'd want to start. Next is Colonel Yularen. Action Compression is a very valuable ability, although there will be times where you won't have more than one unit out. Still, he deploys on 5 resources with a decent body, so I'm happy to play him. Dryden Voss. Ambush is the best ability in the game. You can't really go ham and use Dryden's ability every turn, as you're going to run out of cards. How many times do you have to use the ability to make Dryden worth it? Honestly, I don't know. I prefer something a little more reliable. Bail Organa. It's far too cute for limited. Just save it for Premiere. Mon Mothma. I think Mon is quite a bit better in draft than sealed, where you can go for the Rainbow Officials deck. But in sealed, her ability basically says ignore aspect penalty once, maybe sometimes. She does have a good body and early deploys, so she's at least playable in that respect. Dedra Miro. You'll almost always be drawing a card with her ability, which isn't bad. It gives you something to do with extra resources. If you can get more than one attack in with her with the raid bonus, you're probably winning. Governor Price. She doesn't really have much going for her unless you can get the spy spam deck going, I guess. She's far too narrow for my liking. And just a quick aside, I'm going to make a lot of references to the spy spam deck. It's probably something that will more come up in draft versus sealed. It's just a deck that can work with a lot of different leaders and a lot of different cards and aspects. But it's basically you're trying to get enablers that will make a lot of spy tokens and payoffs that will actually pay you off for having a bunch of spies. So I definitely think there's a lot of cards that like will work with this like spy spam strategy. Official spam is kind of like an offshoot of that as well. So I'm gonna have to draft the set a bunch of times in order to really get a feel for it. But the ingredients are there for the spy spam deck. You may not get it in sealed, but definitely something to look out for in draft. Cassian Andor. You have to be pretty hyper aggro to make this leader work. If you're behind or if the board dictates you have to start trading, he's completely blank. And well, if your opponent is smart enough to claim on the 5 resource turn, your leader flip is god awful. It can work in draft where you can get a high density of aggressive cards and punish early claims, but not something I'm looking to play in sealed. Luthen Rael. Ping effects are great and limited, and Luthen lets you either make value trades or get the last few points of damage on a base. 2/7 isn't the most aggressive stat line, so hopefully your actual units can pick up the slack there. Sly Moore. She's low-key very good, at least in sealed where you frequently have an extra resource kicking around. You really only need 2 units on each side, which isn't hard to do. I mean, what are they going to do? Not attack? Plus, there's a lot of payoffs for having a lot of spies in play, like we talked about earlier. And there's a good chance if spy spam is viable in draft, Sly Moore is like she's got built-in enabler for that. So I suspect it's decent at the very least. So I think this is a very, very solid leader for limited. C3PO. Yuck. Why does this exist? This is worse Cal Kestis, and he's not even good. I can't imagine ever playing him over Padme in the pre-release, and if I've drafted a C3PO deck, something has gone horribly wrong. Padme Amidala. There aren't that many disclosed effects, so you won't reliably use her ability every turn. But whoo boy, if you can get a repeatable disclosed effect, you can laugh all the way to the bank. I don't think she's like the best leader, although I'm happy to play her if I'm already wanting to be Cunning hero. Sabe. She's fine. She helps you when you're ahead and does nothing for you when you're behind. In most cases, I'd rather play Padme, but I can see choosing her if you have a very aggressive deck or don't have any disclosed cards. DJ. Okay, this one is actually unplayable. As we saw with the last set, you're simply not going to have enough cards to give up an entire aspect. And you are giving up an entire aspect as the only double Cunning card is a rare. Just don't do it. All right, so next we're going to go through all the commons and uncommons by aspect, and then we'll finish up with the rares and specials and legendaries. So first up is Treyas Acolyte. Oh man, this would have been amazing in the previous set. Here he's just a decent turn 1 play. Pretty much anything with 4 or more health is going to work great in any Jabba decks, so be on the lookout for those. Zam Wessel. I get she's supposed to go with Lama Su, but she's just awful without an upgrade, and not even that good with one. Only if you're desperate for turn 1 plays. Hey, it's Editing Miranda here. I just realized that I accidentally skipped over Death Trooper. So here's a quick review of Death Trooper. It's our first reprint, and we should know by now about that Death Trooper is pretty good. And this time around, he works especially well with Jabba. It's not quite as a menace as it was in set 1, just because we can't do anything with the Imperial trait, and that's going to be kind of like a running theme with a lot of these reprints. But yeah, the card's good. Sly Moore. Our first plot card of the day. I think a plot card has to be pretty bad to be unplayable. At the very least, you resource it and you have the option to play it if it happens to be good on your flip turn. Sly kind of falls within that category. You resource her on the off chance she does something. I can see cutting her if my deck is really deep unplayable, so. Dogmatic Shock Squad. This is more what I'm looking for in a plot card. A way to immediately impact the board and protect your leader. I wouldn't delay my 5-cost leader flip for this, or any plot card really, as this is totally reasonable to play from hand as well. Cantwell Arrestor Cruiser. It's a bit expensive, but you get a lot of value for your investment. It's a great way to finish out your curve. Creditor's Claim. Remember when I said this set had some pretty good upgrades? Well, here's one of them. The main issue I have with upgrades is the card disadvantage and massive tempo loss you get when your opponent removes the unit. Creditor's Claim can solve both issues. I don't think this single-handedly makes Lamassu playable though. Populist Advisor. I'd only consider this in a Leia deck, and even then, in one that has enough mono aspect cards in your other aspect. There it's a Gunji with upside, and we've seen how good that is. Elsewhere, I wouldn't include it unless you really want officials. Chandrilan Sponsor. It's a very solid turn 1 play. It always makes the cut in any deck in these aspects. Populist Champion. This is the best stat line for a 3-drop, and it has the official trait. Not much to say, it's an auto-include. Senator Chuchi. Personally, I'd rather have a Populist Champion, but it's a close second for that spot. Coronet. It's fat stats and has an obnoxious ability. This is a premium uncommon. Jade Squadron Patrol. This is exactly what you want in your late game plays. It's a big body that shuts down a whole arena. It very easily can be a win condition for your deck. Diplomatic Immunity. The disclose cost is quite significant, so this is just Academy training most of the time. Don't bother. Donnie Pilgrim. It's only playable in Leia where it can at least be a 2/4 for 2. Lobit. He's okay. Typically he'll trade for your opponent's turn 1 play, although he does feel awful if they open in space instead. Lost Jedi. Only if you're desperate for turn 1 plays. 1/3 is a really crappy stat line, and the grid is irrelevant. It's just too bad he wasn't in the previous set. Senate Warden. Big meh from me. Again, only if you're desperate for turn 1 plays. Defense Fleet X-Wing. I mean, it's hardly a big brain take here. It's decent if your opponent has early space, really bad if they don't. Will Row Hood. We're really getting into the gulp shitos here. The text might as well be blank, so it's an understated unit that makes the cut sometimes when you're short on playables. Bardotan Ornithopter. Yeah, it's okay. The combination of 4 health, mono aspect, and cheap disclose makes it likely that most leaders will want it for one reason or another. Rotunda Senate Guards. A 4/5 Sentinel for 4 is above rate for what we usually get, even if it's temporary Sentinel. It's a great include in any Vigilance deck. Congress of Malastare. I'm just playing this as a vanilla 5/5 for 5 that sometimes gives me a discount. Nalase. It's quite solid for slower decks that want to get to the late game, which is what Vigilance decks end up being more often than not. Alderanian Envoys. There's a lot of 6-drops I would play over this. Restore 3 is a lot, so if you do play them, just be sure to have something good to stall for, because these guys are not winning the game for you. Umbaran Mobile Cannon. It's a high-risk, high-reward card. Not my cup of tea, but if that's how you like to play, then go for it. Nimble Prowess. As Wu would say, this card is sneaky good. I like this one because it's dirt cheap and it does something even if your opponent removes the unit. Armor of Fortune. Only playable because of plot, and even then you'll have games where you'll have better things to do with your resources. It's fine as a one-of. Disciples Devotion. Okay, so KOTOR 2 is one of my favorite games, and I always play the lore-accurate female exile, and the worst part of being a female exile is you're stuck with this dingus instead of Brianna. Anyways, this card sucks. Scour the Archives. I would only consider this if I had a bonkers upgrade card in my deck. Relief Request. If this had plot, it'd be playable. Just leave it in your sideboard. Knowledge and Defense. We've had several variations of this card already. It's solid. Play it. Charged with Murder. It's a bit situational, but it shouldn't be too much work to get some value out of it. Retaliation. Remember that this hits leaders. This is a common, so be sure to play around it when you can. All right, so now into the command cards, starting off with Imperial Dark Trooper. I mean, it's just one of those obviously good vanilla units. Play early and often. ISB Shuttle. It's okay. If you're playing this on curve, you can't guarantee a trade on turn 2, and it's really bad if it's not making a spy token. Masameda. I mean, it's going to be very obvious if this is any good in your deck. Cruel Commandos. It seems like there's a lot of really beefy sentinels in this set, so here's another one. It's a great card, should almost always make your cut. Dedra Miro. She would be so much better if she was a 5/7 with no on-attack ability. Still, we play our ambush cards even if she won't also get to survive. Primor Personnel Carrier. I don't particularly like playing 8-cost cards unless they can win the game on their own. I'm not really excited by this one as it leans towards the win more end of the spectrum. I would still play it if I don't have anything else in the 7 to 8 drop slot. Corporate Warmongering. Speaking of cards I don't like, temporary buffs that also don't let you attack in the same action are typically very bad. I would play this in a spy spam deck and nowhere else. C3PO. At least this is a repeatable temporary buff, plus the cheap cost makes it a negligible tempo lost. It's not what you're looking to play on turn 1, but definitely something you can play later on whenever you have an extra resource. Mina Budteri. People are already saying this is one of the best 2-drops for Premier, and it's no different for Limited. Definitely a card to look for. Theed Security. It's a turn 1 play that sometimes gets to do something. Cards like this usually make the cut. Beloved Orator. That's not how you pronounce that. Beloved Orator. It's decent by itself and can jumpstart your engine if you have something going on with officials. I'd rather have a 3/5 in most decks, but still happy to play this. Dracelian Commandos. A 4/5 ambush for 5 is already good. Adding plot to it is amazing. Being a useful card if you draw it after you've already deployed your leader is exactly what we want in our plot cards. Renowned Dignitaries. This is one of your big payoffs for being in an official or spy spam deck. By itself, it's just okay, but the ceiling here goes right to the moon. Renewed Friendship. It's only playable if you have a bomb unit to get back. I don't even think a spy spam deck is interested in paying 4 for 2 spies and a card. Senator's Aid. Barf. Not even good in Leia. Diplomatic Envoy. Absolutely awful as a turn 1 play, and paying 2 plus a card to give something ambush is a hefty cost. If you have something really good to pair with this, go for it, otherwise leave it in the sideboard. GNK Power Droid. It's not bad, there's definitely more embarrassing turn 1 plays. Great if your opponent opens space, and feels real bad if your opponent opens with a 3 power ground unit. Jar Jar Binks. Quite solid actually. We're happy to have cheap plot cards so we have more options on our leader flip turn, and totally fine to play from hand afterwards. Daro Commando. We can't always have a 3/5 for 3, and this is the next best thing. Kino Loi. It's another one of those cards that's only good if you're already winning. Can of course be quite strong in a spy spam deck, but it's very mediocre elsewhere. Tailender Shuttle. I am once again reminding everyone about how much I hate Initiative Matters cards. If you're getting extra value from the spy tokens, go for it. Otherwise, I'm looking for something else to fill my 3-drop slot. Nubian Starskiff. Solid without an official, bit of a monster with one. Auto include in most decks. Consular's Cruiser. Yet another fat sentinel. This one hilariously shuts down the previous card. Raxine Assembly. 6/5 is a pretty good stat line in this set. There aren't that many 5/7s, not 0 as we'll see in a moment, so you'll at least trade with most units. Crucible. Another big payoff for the spy spam deck where it's a giant experience pinata. Still quite solid when it's only handing out a couple of experience. Definitely a card I want for most decks. Naboo Security Force. Having a 5/7 Sentinel for a turn is quite obnoxious, and having the flexibility to slow down the space arena is quite valuable. Another very solid 6-drop. Shadowcrawler. I really wish this was a 7/6. Oh well. Still, ambush or something else that has an immediate impact to the board is what we want for our late game plays. Unveiled Might. This is only playable because of plot. Budget Scheming. Another big brain take. It's only good if you have a lot of officials. Moving on. Reconnaissance. Yeah. Charged with Corruption. You will want to make sure you have enough command cards in your deck, and if you do, it's a quite solid removal event. Convene the Senate. It's not even good in the spy spam deck. With Thunderous Applause. Barf. Barracks Uprising. There will be times where this does nothing, but the upside is worth it. It's basically a Rival's Fall in the spy spam deck, which is amazing for 4 resources. On to Aggression. So first off, we have Imperial Occupier. This is pretty solid. 2 bodies for 2 resources. It's even better if you can trade with one or both halves of it. Hunting Assassin Droid. A 3/4 for 3 is already solid, and it should be pretty easy to give him raid 2. It's a very solid card. Muckraker Crab Droid. I'm less excited about this one. 3 is not a lot of hit points, and it'll often trade unfavorably. You'll want it if you're more on the aggressive side, less so if you're a late game deck. Enforcer Squadron. I have exactly the same take on this as the previous card. Hondo Onaka. It's pretty absurd in a spy spam deck and quite mediocre elsewhere. The plot is pushing up the playability quite a bit. The Galleon. It's fine if you have nothing else in your top end. As I've said before, I prefer my late game cards to do something immediately, and this one doesn't. I will say that, like, at least you're getting, like, a lot of bodies for 7, so, I mean, it's better than most common 7 drops, but it's still, like, it's not going to win you the game by itself. Tempest Assault. It's highly situational. It's more of a sideboard card to bring in against some sort of space weenie deck, if that even exists. Rebellious Functionary. It's great in Leia and nowhere else, really. Cadol Conics. It's a very solid value card, what with all the upgrades running around. There's only 2 unique upgrades in the set, and they're both legendary, so don't worry about that part of the text. Valiant Commando. These stats are pretty poor. I think only a highly aggressive Luthen deck will want this. Kazuda Zional. He's not getting that bonus early, so treat him as a 2/6 raid 2 and call it a day. Strike Force X-Wing. Significantly worse than an Imperial Interceptor, although that plot is doing a lot of work here. Just a solid beater, even if it stays in your resource row sometimes. Inner Rim Coalition. I was gonna say that this is a steal, but then I realized it costs 6, not 5. It's still fine to fill out that part of your curve, I guess. Oppression Breeds Rebellion. No. Reckless Rebel. Like most 1-drops, it's playable in Leia and nowhere else. Contraband Starhopper. It's really nice to have turn 1 space units that don't suck. I'd rather this be at 3/2, but what are you gonna do? Crosshair. Amazing in a Jabba deck and still quite strong with any other leader. This is a must kill for your opponents. Outer Rim Constable. Although this one doesn't have plot, everything I said about Cadol Conics applies here as well. Warrior of Clan Ordo. The drawback is pretty irrelevant and is actually a buff in the Padme deck where it's one of your best turn 1 plays. Scratch that. This is one of the best turn 1 plays in any aggression deck. Academy Disciplinarian. Like Crosshair, you get extra value in a Jabba deck and still very good anywhere else, assuming you have 2 power units in your deck, which you should. Republic RX Starfighter. We've seen a couple self-ping cards in this aspect already, and this card is their best friend. The ceiling here is a 4/1, which isn't incredible or anything, it's just solid. Coruscant Undercity Police. It's a beater. What do you want? AAT Incinerator. Imagine if Django still existed. Corellian Hounds. Smithers, release the hounds. I suspect this card will end some games out of nowhere. Cinta Kaz. Okay, so this card is bonkers with any leader that costs 6 or more. Palpatine makes the best use of her, as you'll still have 4 resources to plot something else. Also extremely strong in Leia or price. With cheaper leaders, playing her from hand is still good as well. I don't think it's worth it to delay your leader flip to plot her, just deploy on curve. Definitely one of the best cards in the set. Republic Warwalker. Yep, huge unit that can end the game by itself. Can't ask for much more from our 6-drops. Ambition's Reward. There's better ways to create spies. Sudden Ferocity. It's another card that's suddenly playable because it has plot. It's not over yet. I said there's better ways to create spies. Pursue the Lead. Discard effects are not usually worth it in limited. Maybe some corner cases I would play this card, but usually not. Aggressive Negotiations. It's only really strong in a Dedra deck where you're likely to have a mitt full of cards. Elsewhere, it's fine, and it's at its worst, ironically, in an aggressive deck, because they tend to empty their hands. Let's call it War. You won't always get to live the dream and 2 for 1 your opponent. 3 damage for 3 resources is still completely reasonable. Unauthorized Investigation. It's an enabler for the spy spam deck and pretty bad elsewhere. Charged with Treason. The disclose is a real cost, so bear that in mind. If you're able to consistently trigger it, then yeah, this card is great. Use with caution. All right, so moving right along with Cunning, our first card is ISB Agent. You generally won't have that many events to trigger this, and unlike set 1, we can't do anything with the Imperial trait. A lot worse in this set than it was in Spark. Screeching TIE Fighter. It's okay filler, I guess. Sly can use it to help flood the board to help get the spy train going. Garandan. Save him for Premiere. Lurking Snub Fighter. Yeah, it's fine. Hopefully you have better plot cards, but this'll do the job in a pinch. Soulless One. It's a very powerful on-attack ability, and as with other disclosed cards requiring multiple symbols, be sure your deck can actually support it. Trade Federation Delegates. It's quite good in a spy spam deck and very mediocre elsewhere. No one ever knew. Here's another big payoff for the spy spam deck. If you have any kind of board, this can win you the game on the spot. Obviously, this does nothing in a deck without a ton of officials. Bail Organa. While I would play this in any deck in these aspects for the stats alone, it only truly shines in a Padme deck where you can get some extra value. Most decks are not going to want to throw away a card for a spy token. Bravo Squadron Fighter. Yep, it's another turn 1 space unit. Junior Senator. I'm always happy to play a 3-2 on turn 1. You will sometimes get blown out if your opponent leads with a 2-4, but that's how it goes. Rebel Propagandist. With all the fat Sentinels in this set, this card can be quite good even if the stats are poor. Emissaries from Ryloth. It's great if you can get a value trade with it. I'd rather have this than say like a vanilla 5-5 or something. Hunter. Oof, this card can be a nightmare for your opponent, assuming the game isn't already over by the time you get to attack with him. Being able to either close out the game or snipe valuable units is a nice flexibility. Faith in your friends. You'd have to be mono Cunning to get the spy tokens, which isn't happening. Just awful. A-Wing. Just A-Wing, huh? No, like, adjectives or anything? Okay. As with many 1-drops, it's great in Leia, fine filler elsewhere. Skyhopper Canyon Runner. Unlike A-Wing, this is only really playable in Leia where it can pretend to be a Gunji. Emissary Sheathapede. It's a big butt in space, perfect for Jabba and reasonable in any Cunning deck. The drawback is manageable as you have some control over when it's defeated, but it is still a drawback. Regulations Bureaucrat. Okay. Zenuous Shadow Fighter. Hidden is wasted in a turn 1 play. Like, I get that it becomes marginally more useful later on, but there's a lot of other 2-drops I'd rather have. Still, we have to make sure we have enough of them, and there are worse ones. Cicatro Vizago. It's decent stats with a not irrelevant ability. It's a solid include for any Cunning deck. Hired Slicer. It's fine as a vanilla 3-4, being able to exhaust something sometimes is a bonus. Unruly Astromech. Ugh, these are horrible stats for a 3-drop. The abilities it has just don't make up for how weak of a unit it is. Lone Shark. Yeah, we play our ambush cards. Duchess's Investigators. This is only good in a Padme deck. Elsewhere it's playable, but below rate. Vel Sartha. This affects all of your attacks, not just attacks with Vel. She can lead to a big blowout turn where you value kill a bunch of your opponent's units. And a 6-power attacker for 5 is nothing to sneeze at. Sneaking Suspicion. It's another only playable because it has plot card. Accelerate Our Plans. It's a big hoop to jump through to get a discount on Surprise Strike. Luckily, this set does provide us with fodder units, so for some decks, the cost really isn't a big deal. Catch Unawares. I loves me a value trade. The difference between this and Disarm is massive, and I'm happy to play 1 or 2 of these. Charged with Espionage. I would definitely side this in if my opponent had a ridiculous bomb. It's probably not worth main decking though. Krea's Whispers. Card draw effects are normally pretty bad in this game, but this one has a couple things going for it. First, it's really cheap, and second, you get to dig through a lot of cards with it. I think decks interested in getting to the late game are interested in playing in 1 or 2 of these. Beguile. It's worse Waylay, but what are you gonna do? Bog Down in Procedure. Don't bog down your deck with cards like these. The Wrong Ride. This is more of a Premier card. I'm not really interested in this for limited. Undercover Operation. I mean, best case you play this on 6 resources after playing a 3-cost unit. I think I'd rather play a 6-drop, hello? Alright, so wrapping up our commons and uncommons with the Villainy, Heroism, and Neutral cards. First up is Supreme Council Aid. You'd have to be supremely desperate for officials to play this. Sith Assassin. Where were you last set? Anyways, standard script about 2-cost 3-2s, usually great, suck into 2-4s. Viper Probe Droid. Another 3-2, you should know by now how to value this. It is worse than it was in set 1 since the Imperial trait does nothing for us. Hut Cartel Starfighter. Only really shines in a Jabba deck, it's filler everywhere else. Political Bully. Yeah, I mean, it's not hard to figure out what decks this fits into. Elia Kane. Her stats are solid, which does make up for the risk of missing with her ability. I don't think I would sandbag this for my opponent's flip turn since you're unlikely to hit with it anyway. FN Trooper Corps. An auto-include for any of the 5-cost Villainy leaders and still very playable with the rest. When has become now? It's only playable if you have multiple good plot cards. And I mean the good ones, not the only good because it has plot ones. Contempt for Culture. Quite the blowout if your opponent opens on a next 2. It's cheap and gives you some extra value for finishing off units. It's not amazing, but certainly making the cut. B2 Emo. Oh, my little man! Sadly, as cute as he is, I don't think he's worth including, even in a Leia deck. High Command Counselor. If you have a bunch of 3-cost official units, this guy is a great beater. Real bad if you can't give him raid. Rebel Pathfinder. There are very few Rebel synergies in this set, it's just a fine turn 1 play. Crate Veteran. 4-3 is significantly worse than 3-4. I don't want my 3-drops trading for my opponent's 2s. I'll still play it, but will grumble if it trades unfavorably, which it probably will. Marva Andor. She is just a 3-4, getting any value off of her when defeated ability is just a nice bonus if it happens. Covert Operative. Usually you'll kill a spy with this, which is fine, I guess. Sometimes you get to capture a real unit, but they're typically traded off by that stage of the game. Heroic Arc 170. It's a solid space beater, and it shouldn't be too difficult to trigger the when played ability for some extra value. Don't be afraid to just run it out there if you have nothing else to do. Remote Escort Tank. Yep, the heroic counterpart to FN Trooper Corps, although only Leia and Padme get to make use of it. And Cassian too, I guess, but I'm not in any rush to play that leader. Grassroots Resistance. It's a removal card that helps you reach the late game. Not every deck wants this card, but the ones that do are happy to have it. ASP Labor. Barf. Inspector's Shuttle. Nothing to see here, officer. Inspiring Senator. This is bad curve filler that you really hope you don't have to play. Endo Commission. Oof. Only 3 HP is rough. You can play this in a pinch if you have no other 4-drops. Assassin Probe. It's more filler. Again, only play if you're light on 5-drops. Clandestine Connections. I don't think you're ever using this on attack ability unless you have literally nothing else to do or it's the last 2 points to win. Alright, so we're going to move into the rares, legendaries, and special cards. You're not going to see these that often, but it is still kind of worth talking about, which ones to play, which ones to avoid. So, and it's good to be aware of them because you will run into them sometimes. So we won't spend too much time talking about them, but we'll just kind of run through the list here. So first off is the Chancellor's Shuttle. It's only remotely playable in Palpatine, and it's not even good there. Nuke Gunray. It's a 3-4 with some upside. It's not worth bending over backwards for, but will always make the deck. Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle. I mean, I'll play it, but it's kind of just filler. Cad Bane. Fantastic card whether you're plotting it out or playing it from hand. Doesn't outright win the game or anything, but will definitely sway me towards these aspects. Darth Scion. Obviously, you're looking to play this as a 7-7, but honestly, a vanilla 6-6 for 5 ain't bad. Condemn. It's quite a solid card, just try not to get blowed out by upgrade removal. Emergency Powers. Can absolutely win the game on the spot if your opponent can't immediately remove the chosen units. Even if you don't attack for lethal that turn, there's a good chance you can put them in check, or if you're really far behind, start eating their best units. Cassian Andor. Extremely sticky, but still a 2-2 with no useful traits. It's playable, but worse than most common turn 1 plays. Galen Urso. It's much better in Premiere. In Limited, it's just fine. The plot is doing some heavy lifting here. Captain Rex. Another giant sentinel, and he stands taller than most. It shouldn't be too difficult to work around the ability by giving Sentinel an arena where it doesn't matter, or to a unit you are going to attack anyway. I'm happy to have this card in any Vigilance Heroism deck. Vigil. Ugh. The plot is irrelevant here. There aren't any 7-cost heroic leaders, and you're not going to delay your deployment for this. It just doesn't do enough for such an expensive card. Bo-Katan Kryze. 9 is a lot, but if you can get her out, she can win you the game. If your deck has the ability to make it that far into the game, then sure, go for it, but most decks can't. 1 in a million. There's a 1 in a million chance that this card will ever do anything. Exiled from the Force. I'm not sure what the use case is here, especially since you'd be playing 3 for it. Escape Pod. It's cute, but not likely to do much for you. Lando Calrissian. Great top-end card assuming you have some dork to throw away. Healing for 6 is a ton and can let you make it to 8 or 9 resources, or even just have a little bit more breathing room to close out the game. The Eye of Aldani. It's just not worth spending a card for this effect. Hyperspace Disaster. You can side it in for the weird circumstance where you're mono ground and your opponent is mono space. Major Partagaz. Not every deck can run this, but quite strong in the ones that can. Even in the decks that have a bunch of officials or spies, this isn't what you want to be playing on turn 1. It's more of a mid to late game threat. Chancellor Palpatine. Oh man, this guy is busted. There's a ton of stuff in play for 3 resources, plus he protects your leader on your deploy turn. One of the best plot cards in the set. Vice Admiral Rampart. He's conditionally very good. The conditions being your deck can support the disclose cost and will reliably have a bunch of units in play. If you can satisfy those conditions, he becomes a must answer for your opponent. Plus he has a huge butt for Jabba. First Light. You're only going to be plotting this out in a Palpatine or Dryden deck, which does take some of the wind out of this thing's sails. It's still totally fine to play this from hand and a nice way to round out the top end of your curve. Director Krennic. He costs 9. At least Bo-Katan had the potential to win you the game on the spot. All Krennic does is stall, which is like, what are you stalling for? It's unplayable in all but the most dirtily of dirtle decks. I Am the Senate's. Only a spy spam deck is interested in this. Ahsoka Tano. She's fine. I'd rather have a vanilla 3/5 TBH. Captain Typho. Oh man, this guy is obnoxious. Not quite as oppressive as Chirrut was in the previous set, but still really darn good. Absurdly good in the Padme deck. Naboo Royal Starship. I can see this being okay in a Leia deck, as she is the beefiest of the playable heroic leaders. This does absolutely nothing after your leader is defeated, so I'm not going to say, like, draft it highly, but if I have it, I'll play it, I guess. Queen Amidala. 9 power spread across 3 units is a steal for 5 resources, especially considering 5 of that power is very difficult to remove. It's a fantastic card that strongly sways me towards these aspects. Mon Mothma. Oh, hell yeah. Slamming Mon down can completely swing a game, and you get a giant Restore 3 unit if you somehow need even more help stabilizing. This is what I want in a rare. A card that can help me win when I'm losing. 7 is a lot, so if you're super far behind, she won't be enough, but you can't ask for much more here. Figure of Unity. This only really shines in a go-wide deck. The spy spam strategy tends to work better in Villainy, but this is a good payoff in Heroic as well. Dismantle the Conspiracy. We have Cadbait at helm. Jokes aside, this is still a great card with the caveat that you have a relatively sturdy unit to do the capturing. Chancellor Valorum. I hope I don't have to explain why this is unplayable. Ornfree Ta. Lamau. Vutan Pala. There's really not that many droids in this set, and this is definitely not worth paying 9 for. Trade Route Taxation. This is more of a premier card. Limited decks don't usually have that many events. This is a waste of a deck slot. Let's talk. I'll save the rant about Bell Let's Talk for another time. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't even worry about it. It shouldn't be too hard to get the discount and get a massive blowout. It's another great payoff for the spy spam deck, but good in any deck that can go wide. Cyril Karn. If you can reliably play the disco cost. If you can reliably pay the disclose cost, this card is a menace. Barely playable if not. Arinda Price. She's a bit understated, so only really good in the spy spam deck or something really aggressive. In those decks, she is a big threat, but not so much elsewhere. Dryden Voss. Extremely unimpressive by himself, only gets exciting if you have ways to pump his power, terrifying if you have aggressive negotiations. Mirage Sintel. She works quite well in a Jabba deck due to her big butt and the ability to add on more pings. Still perfectly reasonable in any other deck. Fulminatrix. It's not amazing, it's a bit too slow for most games. It's fine to include if you don't have any top end. The Elite Squad. Even slower and quite a bit worse than Fulminatrix. Confidence in Victory. I'm confident that this card will not bring you victory. Chopper. Kind of a menace if you open with this on the play, but with only 1 hit point, your opponent can very easily remove it and just comically bad against any of the ping leaders. I would consider siding it in if I'm on the play against non-ping leaders though. Karis Nemec. Now here's an excellent 2-drop. We already play 3/2s. Having one that replaces itself with a ready unit is gas. Luthen's Hallcraft. Only really good if you can reliably pay the disclosed cost. With only 3 hit points, it's very easy to remove. Alexander Callus. This is a quite strong late game play, especially if you're able to claim on Resource 6 to set him up. Great payoff for the Heroic Spy Spam deck, but honestly great in most Aggression Heroism decks. Nemec's Manifesto. There's just not enough rebels to make this good. +1 attack and Overwhelm isn't really worth a card, so the removing abilities part of this card has to do something to justify playing this. It can be a valuable sideboard card, but I don't think I would ever main deck this. Chairman Papanoida. Ziton Maj. Every time I look at the art for this card, I think he has 4 arms like Goro from Mortal Kombat. It's just a silly looking laser gun is all. Anyways, it's a 4/5 that sometimes deals some extra damage. Punishing One. In theory, this should have Ray Tube or more by the time you attack with it. In practice, your opponent does get a vote in how big this gets. It's okay, it should make the cut, but I wouldn't draft it highly. Saw Gerrera's U-Wing. It's pretty slow. There's a lot of common 6 drops I play over this. Hint, it's the ones with a lot more power. Topple the Summit. One of the better plot cards in the set. You can engineer some huge blowouts with this. Single aspect too, and you can jam this into any aggression deck. General Grievous. Pooh! Darth Treya. The stats are just okay, but oh man, depending on your leader, getting to double dip on the ability can be extremely strong. In aspect, using your Sly twice a turn is a major enabler for the Spy Spam deck. Pinging twice with Jabba also seems really good. It doesn't do much for you if you're playing either of the Command Villainy leaders, however. Grand Moff Tarkin. I mean, obviously your opponent needs to have a vehicle, preferably a good one, for this to do anything. That should happen very frequently, so I'm not worried about the very minor downside on a card that can potentially single-handedly win you the game. Grand Admiral Thrawn. The Empire sure loves their ostentatious titles, huh? This card is very matchup dependent on how good it is. Sometimes you pay 7 resources and your opponent goes, okay, here I have a spy token, and you lose the game. Sometimes you bash base for 8 because you killed all their units already. I would always main deck this card and be prepared to resource and or side it out as necessary. Fully Armed and Operational. Another great plot card that has the wonderful property that it's still good when played from hand. I can't wait for all the dank palpy impressions when people play this card. Arrest. It's both better and worse than Waylay. It's better insofar that your opponent can't replay the unit that turn, worse because they don't have to pay the resource cost again. On balance, I think it's worse overall, but still playable as temporary removal. Works best in an aggressive deck where you can remove a big sentinel, of which there are many in the set, and attack for the win. Furtive Handmaiden. Obviously made for Padme, and it's unplayable elsewhere. Anakin Skywalker. Another Padme card, although reasonable if unexciting with other leaders. Tala Durith. This one isn't doing for me. Playable because of plot, but honestly, I don't know if I would even play it half the time, even if I could plot it out. Blue Ace. Oh boy, that's a big space ambusher for its cost. The drawback shouldn't be too hard to work around. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Oh man, I love this card. When he was spoiled, I was cackling to myself at the thought of playing my opponent's Avenger. While I don't think that'll ever happen, in Limited he's a huge threat because every once in a while you'll hit something really good with the ability. It's not like Premier where decks have a lot of redundancy. In Limited, your opponent may only have 1 removal event or 1 bomb, and if you hit it, not only do you get to play it, but you're also denying it from your opponent. Sure, you're statistically more likely to hit a filler card, but the threat of this card demands an answer. Lightmaker. This will likely win you the game if your opponent can't immediately remove it. The Mandalorian. I don't think this does enough to justify the hefty cost. I would still play him in sealed. Draft is probably too fast for this to be playable. Stolen Starpath Unit. This is a lot of work for a spy token. The card is very cheap at least, so it's like fine as a 30th card, I guess. Libertine. Save it for the DJ brews. Ebon Hawk. Both modes are quite fantastic. Either you're attacking for a ton or getting value trades, and this goes without saying the card is amazing in Padme. Sinara-san. I want more from a 7-drop. Special modifications. With enough transports, this is a pretty decent package for only 2 resources. And there are actually a fair number of them at common and uncommon, so it's not an unreasonable ask. Just like, don't go ham and play the bad ones for this card. Implicate. Nah. Darth Nihilus. He's a bit slow, but I like him more than most other 7 drops. I would always play him in sealed, draft is less certain. Evil is everywhere. You have to have 3 Villainy units in play for this to achieve cost parity. If you want to kill something bigger, aren't you already winning the game at that point? Moral Authority. Now this is a much more reasonable removal card. This only working with unique units is a real cost, so keep that in mind. You can always throw this on your leader, so it's rarely completely dead. Restore Freedom. Again, you have to have at least 3 heroic units in play to get a discount. If you want a big discount, aren't you already winning the game? All right, so that's going to do it for our Secrets of Power limited set review. I hope this is useful to you in your pre-releases and future limited events. With big limited events like PQs and sectors and regionals and all that. So limited is, I'm loving the increased focus on limited. And I'm really, really sore that I had to miss Philadelphia because, oh man, I really would have liked to play a big sealed event, but oh well, hopefully there'll be another one close to me soon. So hopefully you enjoy the video. Let me know how your pre-releases go. Like, feel free to share in the comments. And if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And this is still a very small channel, so any sort of engagement really helps. So like, share, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff really helps. So have fun at the pre-release, and we'll see you all next time. Bye!